up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. This is published by Nemesis Games and designed by Cornelius Cremin, Dirk, Sommer, and I promise I try to get it right this time, Pawel, Mazur. Okay, I think you got it right. I looked at the pronunciation video, but I still think I mangled it. Story about that. So now I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who will tell you more about the game itself.
So this is a cooperative 1 to 4 player game that, according to designers, as far as what Jason told me, plays in 2 to 4 hours. I think it depends on the number of players that you're playing and how many rounds that you're playing, because you can end it at 3, you can go to 4.
You can end it at 2 for a really short game as well.
I still think it took us about an hour around. So if you get really good at it, you might be able to play it close to the 2 hour mark. I think it's closer to the 4 or even more. So that's it.
All right, so what will you be doing in Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor? Well, this is a 4X game, meaning you're going to be exploring the map, expanding your armies, expanding your power, and facing off against the enemies arrayed against you. And you got to gain some experience, but I guess it's more like resources than experience. So that's what you will be doing. As you can see, we've got the game set up. You'll be facing off against the forces of the... Oh, I actually forgot to do something here, so we'll just pop them in. The Imperial Legion, the last of the Empire. You'll be facing off against the forces of Chaos, the Chaos Hordes that have wiped out humanity and are descending on this last island of Azul, this last bastion of humanity. You'll notice that, there's the ocean, but they're all frozen waste, and you can see the Chaos Horde that is advancing. Now, the last emperor did something that caused this chaos. The actual story for that is in the Uprising, the Arch Nemesis expansion booklet. It has a cool story. Haven't had a chance to read it yet, but you know me, I do love to dive into the lore of games. So, did I miss anything, Julie? You'll be rolling a lot of dice as you try to complete quests, as well as fight the enemies with your forces. Yeah, lots of dice rolling. Just want to make sure that I covered that. Now, we will not be taking a look at the components, so if you'd like to check them out, there'll be a link popping up to our unboxing where we go through this box and the Arch Nemesis box. I will be doing a quick gameplay overview of the game. You're not going to necessarily be able to see everything, but I want to make sure that you get a good idea as to what the game is going to be playing like, so you will understand our discussion. I'll try to keep it relatively short. On that note, is there anything to add, Julie? So we are now going to
grab our drink,
grab our best friend and fellow rebel,
and we're going to take it to the table one more time.
One more time.
Hopefully it goes better than the other times.
I hope so. This is a hard game.
It definitely is.
Now we're going to go through an overview of the gameplay in Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. If you want to check out a full how to play, we recommend the John Gets Games tutorial. That's what we watched, and he did a great job explaining it. So this is really just so you have some context for the discussion we will be having in our review portion that's coming after this. So this is really just going to be a brief overview to give you a feel for the game. Now you can't see the whole map. This is a 4-player setup. We've got Yanni over here and Kaal. We have the Imperial capital, and we're going to start setting up the game. To do that, you have to reveal the first chapter card. This will tell us to place 1 salt on each unexplored hex that shows salt. So I'm going to do that for the ones that are on camera. If I forget one, it's probably because it's not within range as to what I'll be doing in this portion of the video. We must place a legion at threat 4 and its target on a sea tower. We must place 1 horde at threat 4 on an empty hex adjacent to a different sea tower, and place 1 curse on any X with no X. So, first and foremost, we'll take out one of the curse tokens. We'll place it somewhere. So, that's probably the least inconvenient for what I'm trying to accomplish. Now, there is this sea tower over here, which you can't quite see. So, for that case, I'll place the horde adjacent to it, which is going to be the false messiah. And that is the one that I drew. So the false messiah, when you set him up, you're just going to place him there. And you take this thing that I tried to run away from me. You set his threat level, which will tell you the dice that you're going to be rolling in combat. Now the other one that we drew for the Legion was the Imperial Guard. So he's going to go over here with his target. And just like what we did for the false messiah, we set him up at threat level 4. Now, off on the sideboard that you can't see that way, you have 3 quests, 3 items, and those are some of the things you're going to be able to do as well. So in the game, you can move, and movement is unlimited. You can trade. Trading is also unlimited. You can pay 1 food resources to command to move your hero and your units into a space. Movement just affects your hero, who can go anywhere, even if there is blocking terrain. Explore lets you flip over a hex. You've got Haven, which will let you build a new haven, a new city, essentially. You've got the market action, which lets you buy items, and the quest, which lets you try to complete some of these quests. Now, what you're going to be doing is following the chapter track, which you cannot see, but it's going to guide you down step by step as to what you need to do. So after you've done the event phase, you revealed these characters, you've placed activation tokens on these enemy characters, you're going to get to the build phase. Now, during the build phase, you're going to be drawing new feats for your character. Each character has 2 starting feats, and I'll just put those over here for the moment. So when you draw new feats, what you do is you take the top 2 feats and you pick one, and you decide what you want to do with it. So we could get leadership 1, magic. In this case, magic's always been fun. You put this underneath your character card, which I also have off camera. But as you can see, you've got the stats for your character, the dice that you're going to roll when you're trying to complete a quest. So actually, I think this actually shows up on camera. I wasn't quite sure. Yeah, so I'll leave that over there. That's going to give me 3 extra resources. So now I'm building. So what I'm going to be doing is build different units. Now you want to build some strong units for sure. And what I'm putting out does not reflect what I could actually build necessarily. I haven't calculated it out. I haven't calculated the resources. I'm just putting different things on the map for the purposes of teaching you the game. But typically, you're going to want to build a strong force. You're going to want some archers for the archery phase to ensure that you're able to defend yourself as well as deal damage to the big enemies during combat. So you've got 8 different actions you can take. So each movement costs 1, and they're unlimited. So I could, move 2 actions if I wanted this turn. But you need to explore, take a look at different stuff. So I would move, and as it doesn't end my turn, I can then take the explore action, which then lets me reveal this hex. And I knocked over my Koloth. And then what I need to do is follow the instructions on the hex. So I would gain 3 salt. If empty, place 1 skeleton here. It's not empty. If not, reinforce here. So as this is chaos, and this is where there's some of the rules aren't exactly clear. I'm not exactly sure if we'd actually reinforce it because this is a horde. So I guess we could follow the rules that it's empty and place a skeleton here because there is no skeleton or garrisons in this location. You must then place 1 activation token on a legion or horde with the fewest amount of tokens. While we're engaged in the false messiah, we'll put it on him to have him activate twice, potentially get rid of him. And then we must place a skeleton with other skeletons, so I'll just put him here. So that would be a movement and explore action. Now I must spend a resource of food to take a command action. So that's the green food resource that I have to pay. And when you command, you can also move your troops. You just have to explore first. You cannot command into unexplored regions. So you can bring all these guys into combat with the enemies that are here. Now, the first thing that you're going to do if you're ever fighting a legion and a skeleton on the same location is you're going to attack the skeleton and resolve that first. So you go through the archery phase, and as we've got 2 archers, we will roll 2 white dice. The skeleton does not have an archery phase. He just rolls 1 red die. We roll, we get the skull. Lucky for us, defeat the skeleton. This also will give us 1 victory point, which are key to winning the game. Every single player in the game has to be above the victory points or tied to those of chaos and the Legion in order to win. So we did that. Now we then go on to attacking the false messiah. So we have some specific things that it tells us. It goes gain 1 haven on a hex with a haven or imperial units. So we gain an extra red die. And it says remove 1 haven of any players from play once per combat if you roll that dreaded lightning bolt. So we really don't want to do that. We want to hit him once, knock down those chances. So in the archery phase, he rolls 2 white dice, and we also roll 2 white dice. Now you want to make these rolls simultaneously. I'll do the best that I can. Roll the shield and a blank. He rolled 2 blanks, so nothing happens. We're going right into the combat phase. Now we do have feats, but the feats that we have do not affect what we can do in combat. Now, if we'd taken an action to purchase an item, for example, let's say we'd done that beforehand, the item would cost us specifically an amount in salt. We'd pay that salt. Then we could get this ability. What we have here for this one would be to discard it during the clash phase to gain an extra red die. Now, what we're going to do is take a look at the units we've got here, tally them up, and roll. So I've got a black, 2 red, and 2 white. Now, if you're wondering why there's only 5 units, I neglected to mention it. You can only have 5 units per space. So I've got black, 2 reds, and white. So these are my dice. Now, at rank 4, the opposing enemy has got a purple, a red, a blue, and a white. Now notice, we're never going to go back into the archery phase, and combat's going to continue until our forces are defeated or the enemy forces are defeated. There is no stopping combat in this game. So we roll the dice here. That's a great roll. Roll his dice here. He also has a really strong roll. So bad things are going to happen. Now, any player would lose a haven. At this point, I'm the one fighting him. So unfortunately for me, I would lose a haven. Very bad. Now we have the lightning bolt. So we can use our ability. So you may reroll any of your dice that do not show a lightning bolt. Now we got some great rolls. We could possibly use some more defense. He hit us for 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to lose 4 units here, which is fairly hefty. But we can reroll 2 dice. Now, we only need 4 damage. Unfortunately, this does not have any shields. So really, these are the ones we want to try to reroll to ideally get 2 shields. And we get nothing. So after this combat, we're going to lose 4 units. We want to keep our most expensive unit, potentially. Or, if we wanted to save units, we have a starting feat. So we can discard this card and destroy our Koloth. But he is less expensive than the Oathsworn and the others. So we can destroy him to ignore all damage that was dealt to us. So bye-bye Koloth, and we will keep our units. The False Messiah is defeated. We would then gain the victory points that are located in here. Now, the Koloth actually would go onto the sideboard that you can partially see into the Chaos Graveyard. The Chaos is going to score points for the different factions that they have in the graveyard. The same thing is going to hold true for the Legion. Now, we've lost a haven. Things aren't going so great, but we can take this action and spend 2 plunder to build a new haven. We could build it back on our home site, which is probably what we want to do. We could also build it here. Now, depending on the plunder that we have, smart action may be to build that one, then potentially move, and then build another one. We also taken a command action, which I neglected to put out. But as you can see, we've taken a lot of actions so far. The only ones we haven't gone over are trade. Trade you can take anytime. You will gain assault, and you can trade with other players that are on your space, and they're heroes. So that's something that's possible. Now, the red hero may occupy the same space as your havens or your hero. You may not have units from other factions in your space. So if we had orange out there, yellow-orange, they could not be in the same space as our haven with just their regular units. So we've gone through all that stuff. Now the last action that we haven't really discussed really would be to take a quest action. And some of these are more difficult than others, but it'll tell you what you need to resolve them. Here it says 2+. You have to get 2 of these results. It tells you what you can do. If you roll a shield, you may draw a new quest. So you can get 4 skulls, 2 lightning bolts, and if you solve this, 1 legion or horde loses 2 threat and discard this quest. If you fail, you've got a failure effect and it's that's what you need to do. Now, if your hero is located on a hex with a Legion or Horde, you get +1 purple die. So think about this, though. If I go back in time, and we'll just put this Haven back, we'll put the False Messiah back, put my Koloth back, no, not actually there. Let's say I was slowing this down, not just kind of going through the actions and really thinking about what I wanted to accomplish here. The smartest thing for me to have done before engaging the attack would have been to do this quest. So I have the stats from my character here with this 1 might, 1 magic, and this magic that I took is hiding over here. So we have the extra magic as well. So we would get an extra magic, so 2 purple, 1 blue, Linga, which is a white and an orange. And then also, because I am on the same space with Horde, I get an extra purple. So you see that we get a nice roll there. Lots of lightning bolts. I even wanted to be able to draw new quests. So I could lower his threat by 2, meaning that even before I went into combat, his threat would be a lot lower. And as you can see, we wouldn't have had any chances for him to trigger the lightning bolt by getting him so low, which is really interesting. So that's part of the advantages of the quest and just how powerful they can be. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, these druid cards with the lightning bolts, there are 4 of them. 1 of them will come out each chapter. So you may see only 2 of them in a short game or up to 4 of them in a long game. But that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be moving around, exploring, attacking different locations. If you would move here, you would attack after you explored. You'd potentially attack a garrison, so this would tell you what happens here. If empty, place 1 skeleton. If not, reinforce. So if you happen to have to reinforce, what you do is you would place that out, and then you would need to, well, put it back where it was actually. The reinforce would be take this up to a level 2 garrison. And what's very important is that once you reveal a space like this, you can place the mountains in whatever orientation that you want. So if you wanted to build a haven here, and legions would potentially be spawning in the capital trying to attack you, well, guess what? This means they have to go around. So there is definitely some strategy in terms of placement. But there you have it. That's the overview as to how to play the game. So you get a good idea as to what's going to be going on. Now keep it right here, as Julie and I will be coming back at you with a review of Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. So, Julie, what did you think of Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor? Spoilers, I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation because I think there's a lot to like and there's a lot that we did not quite enjoy.
Yeah, you just really wanted to go out and spoil it there. So, first, let's...
I didn't want to spoil it. I wanted to set the tone of the review because there's some good, there's some bad, like in most games. I think this one might be a lot more kind of balanced between the two, though.
So first of all, I mean, look at that table presence. It's got some really cool standees, acrylic standees.
They are awesome.
They're really nice. Different sizes for different quality of your guys, however you want to call them. There's the wall defenses and the towers added in. It's not the coolest havens, but they are what they are. But
I did see some painted havens, and they can look really nice if you want to spend the time painting them to bring out the details.
Yeah, that's not me. So, any case, but look at the size of this. We have a big table, and this was a challenge at times, trying to get it all. But all the different colored dice, the red color jewels, and the player boards, the cards. I really like the art. So that's one thing I'm definitely gonna say. It's not. How can I say? I don't typically love. She's got black, black war paint and whatever on, but it is nicely done, and I do appreciate the fact that each of the heroes. Because you still call them heroes, right?
Yeah, these are the heroes. They're all double-sided.
So that there's a woman and a man. So Jason often asks me who.
I don't think that's actually the case.
They're not all women.
No, but
a lot of them do.
A lot of them. I just can't tell. This one, maybe. Dirk put the Syria. Actually, I believe you are right.
Well,
I wasn't
says
quite
she.
sure.
Now, I don't know if it has any they. I don't know if it's that inclusive.
No, you are correct. This one, the art is just not that clear on this faction right here. But the red faction, I don't actually know their names by heart. But yes, you are correct. There is a man and a woman, so very inclusive. Good catch, Julie.
Like I said, I don't know. I didn't look at it closely enough to see if there is also they pronoun.
Not on what we have here in the base game, perhaps in the expansion. I didn't go into that much detail.
So that being said, it is very colorful. It is, I do enjoy the quality of the material. Now the little cards, I like the thickness of the corrugate. These things are a pain to shuffle.
The finish is terrible.
The finish doesn't make them very easy to shuffle, and you do have to shuffle them throughout the game. But
when you're talking about the finish, sorry to interrupt there, but if you've played other Ravensburger games, it's very similar to that. Like we had issues shuffling Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazon.
This is thicker than,
thicker quality, but similar finish. So if you know Ravensburger stuff and the way that feels, the difficulty shuffling, it is the same thing with these cards.
Yeah, I just feel like they're better quality though.
They are. The card stock is better. The finish is identical.
I think the finish is better in the sense I don't think it's going to wear off versus in Ravensburger, they tend to wear off at the corners. Anyways, that being said, the concept to me seemed like it should be pretty interesting. It's a cooperative game. It's a big scale game. It's campaign in the sense that, you have several, it's not just one round, there's several rounds. I think
the full campaign mode too that we did not play, that was a print and play expansion, so you can actually play it as an epic multiple 4-chapter campaign. So
for me, it's not really like your characters can build or grow their powers. I mean, in this case, you can get feats. You can get some feats that allow you to items. To develop your hero a little bit. Yeah, I got this ghost stone that gave me an extra die for my hero. So one thing I'm going to say, I did not enjoy the 2-person game. Now the advantage is it was a little bit shorter, but I hated most of it. I did not enjoy the combat at 2 players. It is, you're rolling dice, but even if you roll a fantastic roll, it feels like the villains are just too overpowered in a 2-player game. It feels like the deck, there's not really a deck, it's just stacked. The scaling is off in the game, and I have to agree with you on that point because the game is random. So a lot of good rolls on a 2-player game, and not going to lie, on our first learning game, we did roll back a couple bad rolls because we wanted to see how the game would play and how it would progress. And we'd roll a bad roll, then we'd roll a good roll, and that game flowed pretty smoothly in our favor. That being said, our second 2-player game, we were fairly annihilated by the end of the second chapter. We set up the third, we counted the points, and we just were too far behind to come back. So we played a 4-player, and it is more balanced. It is more enjoyable that way. It is more feasible. You still get annihilated. I mean, I don't know how many times I lost all of my men. That being said, we still won. We won handedly. You can't see the scoring, but the scoring here for Chaos and the Legion, and then we've got my 2 factions on the other side, and Julie went all the way around the board with her 2s, so you can't even see them right now. But I would say one major thing I'd hold against it for this kind of game is it's very long, and for me, in my opinion, at least for us, I should say. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, and I'm trying not to sneeze on camera. So my apologies, I wasn't able to keep that sneeze back, but what I was saying is, for me, where we are in our gaming, where the time that we have, this game is just too long. It takes about an hour per round. We played a 4-round game, so it took us probably I would say over 4 hours. We could have stopped at 3. That being said, that's a lot of time commitment for a game. When we aren't really playing game night, I just think even then at game night, teaching people, playing the game, playing a 4-round version of the game means this is the only game we're going to be able to play. And it's going to be a long game night. It's going to be a long game night. Yeah, you're going to be, we
the game group typically started around 7, meaning we have to start 7 sharp, and we'd be going to 10:30, 11 o'clock easily. Now, just to contradict Julie a little bit, skilled players that play this game a lot can see the flow of the game and have this game out regularly. We'll be able to play this much quicker. I do think you can get it down to the suggested playtime of around 2 hours because the actions are very simple and straightforward, and sometimes things flow very fast. Other times it's like, what exactly do we need to do? If I do this and it blows up in my face, can you back me up? How are we going to work together? So you do have to see the game at a very high level for it to play very quickly. And I got to agree with Julie. The game takes too long for where we're at currently. We don't have that kind of time. We wanted to get this review done with about a week's worth of plays. It took us 2 weeks. Like this, we played it for an extra week. We released something we had in the bank last week, and we're just now getting through this game because we have about an hour to an hour and a half to play every night. So this has been we've been basically playing a chapter a night.
Yeah, and and on the weekends it means that we can play twice in the day, once when the little guy's sleeping and then again at night. So we get a little bit more done, but it's just, we don't play the game just once when we're reviewing it. We like to play it more than one time. So this one was a time commitment, and honestly, it didn't. It should. It ticks a lot of boxes, but it should be more interesting. And I think, Jason, you had a line you were telling me. I think I should let you say it because, Jason's the one that does a lot of the research for the games and what we're going to be playing. And I think this is probably a little bit more of a disappointment for you than for me because there was no anticipation for me.
Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to this game for a long time. I've been talking up this game when I got it, when I first backed it on Kickstarter, when it was finally shipping. I told Julie I was really excited this was coming because 4X is like everything that I want to play in a competitive game, but it just doesn't typically work for us just because of game length. So having a cooperative 4X game, I was like, finally, we're going to get this nice, big, crunchy game, something that will probably take around, I expected the 2 to 2.5 hour mark. So that's why I really want to play it at 2 players. But then seeing how the scaling went, and the main issue I have with this game, and it's something that bugs me a lot, and it's something that it doesn't fly with me anymore, is randomness. I don't mind some randomness. You need that when you have any type of dice game. Otherwise, it can be a little too easy or too straightforward. But this game is random on top of random on top of random on top of random. And so many elements of it are random that it will be very challenging. And some games you're just going to get crushed brutally, and it'll happen very quickly. Other games, if the dice are in your favor, like they were for Julie's Blue faction, and I forget the name of the faction, you're going to have not too many issues in this game whatsoever. And you can see the dice were more in Julie's favor than in mine. She also did some nice mop-ups for my big attacks on the enemies when they just didn't quite go my way. So that also kept getting her ahead when, we win and lose as a team, because you have to score higher than either the Legion and the Horde, which we did. But I just don't have time, like 4 hours for that level of a random game in my life. Unfortunately, there's just so many other things that I want to play. And if I look about the amount of time we spent playing a few games of Uprising, we could have finished our campaign for Lord of the Rings Shadow of War. It'd be done, and we'd be doing a final campaign review. And I guarantee that I would have had more fun playing that than I had with this game. And that's just, I think, the biggest disappointment for me is the amount of energy and effort that I spent on this just really wasn't worth it for the way we like to play games.
Yeah, which doesn't mean that I can't see somebody else enjoying this kind of game. Actually, I think I can see a couple, and I won't name them in case I'm wrong, but to me, this is a game that a couple of people in either gaming group would like, just because of the way it plays. So I think if you don't mind the randomness of dice, if you like big epic games that change a lot, I mean, honestly, the quests that come out, the items that come out, and I think that's to go on what you were saying of randomness. I mean, there's not just the dice, but it's also the items, the quests, the locations that come up,
placement of the locations, the sequence that they come out. The Mage Breaker is a brutal villain. Luckily, they were the last Legion that came out, and there's some lack of clarification in the rulebook because it says that the Mage Breaker would immediately destroy one of the sea towers and move there. However, they were the last Legion defending the capital, so we ignored that immediate effect. There is definitely a few things that are missed in the rulebook, and they do have some really great reference cards like dice distribution, most overlooked rules. However, some of those things aren't covered. And also the way some of the characters are balanced. Like your character, Rania, I wish we'd had her in a two-player game because her ability to reroll dice is huge, unbelievable. And you got some really cool starting feats, so you get some stuff that might let you mitigate abilities, might add some dice, but the mitigation is kind of all over the place. It's not really the same for each player. And so far, the only one that we've played that can reroll is her.
Yeah, well,
regularly.
I think Yanni had an ability. Oh, added dice.
We had lots of add dice or pay one to get an extra die, but I'll reroll 2 archery dice. But you've got the one that just lets you reroll all your combat die, which saved your bacon more than once with her.
Yeah, and the other thing that really bugged me was the fact that there's very little opportunity to get rid of curses, which to me is not, it just doesn't feel right. It feels like there should be a few more opportunities. It's kind of like what you say with deck builders. There should be an opportunity to cull your deck. Well, you should be able to get rid of curses more easily than a random quest that could come up.
Yeah, and to keep it going, you have to sacrifice druids. So I guess the way it really works is if you're lucky enough to get that quest at the very end of the game, you basically deal with the threats of the board, and then you just start nuking as many curses as you can because you're not going to have any more combat, so you will not need the druids anymore. But as we're talking about that randomness, if it comes up in the perfect spot, it is incredibly useful. And I really appreciate that about the game. I love the components, the table presence. We even have these beautiful trays, which are awesome. The rule book, which you can see in our unboxing that I linked earlier, is spiral bound. It looks fantastic. And you even have the lore for the whole setup as to how the world got so bad in the Arch Nemesis expansion, which includes even more factions and more variety. So if you are the type of player that likes big epic games and doesn't mind having the game, lie on a dice roll, then I think you're going to enjoy this. Well, not the entire game, but that's a big part of it. Also, I agree with Julie, what she said. The two-player game experience is not something I ever want to repeat. Now, potentially switching up some of the factions, maybe even looking to see what factions are in the Arch Nemesis box and picking ones that may work better at 2 players, but with what's in the base box, I did not enjoy it. I also think the scaling doesn't add up. I was reading some stuff on Board Game Geek, people discussing about just how things will play out over the game, discussing how the dice eventually they will even out the rules. Lots of good ones for you, lots of good ones for the bad guys, and bad on both sides. However, I understand that the later chapters 2 and 3, they do scale a little bit based on the player count. However, the first 2 chapters, there is no scaling at all, meaning if you start off well at 2 players, you're going to be in a good spot in chapters 3 and 4. If you start off badly in 2 players, you can be really far behind and maybe even too far behind when you get to that 3rd chapter in this big epic game. So really didn't enjoy that. I also don't see how the lack of scaling, also maybe lack of specific tiles to try out and specific placement, equals the fact that you're losing 2 factions when you're potentially adding a total of 5 enemies, which is a total number of an extra 64 actions that you're taking out of the game. And that will let your forces be a lot stronger going into that 3rd chapter. And the one thing I love about the 4-player game, we actually had an epic finish. It came down to points, but as you can see, I don't know if you can quite see it on the camera, but Rania there is in the capital. They could have put a haven in the capital there. We've captured the Imperial forces. Chaos has been wiped off the map. We literally went through just about every single card in the deck, and we cleaned house, and we had a really awesome, epic experience. In the shorter games and in the two-player games, it really came down to counting victory points, and I find that incredibly anticlimactic. That's something that I would expect not from a co-op big battle experience. It's something I would expect more from a, 4-player, 4X game where eventually, you don't want to have anyone feel bad by getting wiped out. Some people may, but you want to have the last people standing and be like, okay, the game's done, let's see how we did. And it feels better to compare victory points against a player than it does against a game. It's probably one of the reasons why I don't play many of the Stonemaier games solo. So
are you ready to give a rating?
I'm ready to give a rating. I think there's a lot to like here. Oh, there's one last thing I wanted to point out. Now, these sideboards are big. You don't have to use them. I will say the table presence is egregious. There is no reason for this game to be this big. I think that it looks beautiful. It's awesome if you have the space for it. But if you don't, you're going to really struggle. And this game could have been put into a more compact size. So that's the one thing I just wanted to make sure I got that covered. So I'm ready to give it a rating. I want to hear what you say, Julie. I wonder if it's going to influence me. I'm pretty sure I know where I want to go with this, but I want to hear your final thoughts and your resume of this game.
Well, for me, based on, I'm not going to repeat everything I said, but based on the table presence and the 4-player game, I'm giving this a 6.5. It's not just it was passable at 6.5. I think that 1.5 is the prettiness of the game and the colored dice and all of that. If I was basing it on the 2-player game, it would definitely be a fail.
No, I'm going to agree with you. It's a 6.5 for me. I understand why people are rating this incredibly high. I see who this appeals to. I see the members of our game group that would have a lot of fun playing this. The reality is we just do not have the time for this game. We play a new game a week. And quite frankly, there is a lot of old classics, or at least older games, that I would have much rather played, and campaigns that I would have rather spent time finishing than playing this game. So it's passable. It's a 6.5. I think that the game retooled a little bit could be a lot higher, but the randomness is just way too high for me, and I think that knocks it down almost a good 2 points. I think a game that was a little bit more deterministic would be one of those things that even if it was long, it'd be in our collection. I mean, I don't know if you can quite see it on the camera. We've got CO2 over there, and that game drove us batty. We were at each other's throats a little bit. It is a hard Lacerda cooperative game, but the one thing we both said is that we know we can beat the game if we can figure it out and work together well enough to just plot out the solution. And that's not necessarily the case in this game. And I like that a lot about CO2, and I would like this game more if there was some of that element in there. But the best planning can be thrown off by the completely random placement, not getting the right terrain, and heck, your chaos and the Legion are supposed to be able to fight each other. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes it just gives them more points. And in this last game we had, there was one opportunity for them to fight, and then we actually set a trap for them. It didn't work out in our favor. They got more skeletons, so there you go. So that is Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor.
So on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description. You'll find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There are lots of pictures of Julie and I playing Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor on those feeds. It's been on the table for 2 weeks, so we've been showing it off. You should definitely check those out. And also down there is a link to multizone.ca, great Canadian game store. Click that link, you'll get 10% off your next purchase, and it's a great way to support the channel, as a portion of that purchase is returned to us. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release, and since we have foregone the components for this last video, in front of Julie you will see links to our unboxing where you can see what is in this box, as well as in the Arch Nemesis expansion. So on that note, we are going to grab our drinks, grab our fellow rebel.
I'm going to keep playing games.
Keep playing games. Just not so sure if this one's going to make it back to the table, at least not anytime soon.